All right. Okay, so what I ask everybody to do on chapter 12 is it is the most interesting and the most challenging chapter in the book. And some of the concepts seem easy, but then when you go to apply them to homework or other examples, you feel lost because they are a little different. And it's all about decision making, lots and lots of decision making in different scenarios. Okay. So what I just briefly asked, I briefly presented the 5 different situations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's actually 6, but we've already done managing constraints in our first unit, but for allocating a constrained resource. And what I ask the students to do, what I ask all of you to do is read the chapter before Tuesday. Okay, as much as you can, read the chapter so that you can understand it, so that you can be more ready for when we go over the examples on Tuesday. But I presented the example. So we start off chapter 12 with this concept of defining, and you can see it in your course pack under chapter 12. There's some vocabulary terms, define, and examples. And knowing the difference between relevant and irrelevant costs, relevant and irrelevant benefits. Okay. And relevant means you have alternatives, and that cost is different with each alternative. Benefit changes with each alternative. If it doesn't change, it's irrelevant. Another term to define is avoidable costs. So an avoidable cost goes away if you choose an alternative. It just goes away. Therefore, it's relevant. If it's unavoidable, if it's the same cost with both, it's irrelevant. It doesn't change, doesn't affect your decision. Okay. And then going back and reviewing the concept of sunk costs and future costs, those are always going to be irrelevant. Sunk costs, money spent in the past. Okay. And remember that when you guys did your last exam and you were trying to decide whether to upgrade an old machine or buy a new machine, the original cost of the old machine was a sunk cost. It was already spent years ago. It's not relevant to the decision. Okay, so decision-making, eliminate the cost and benefits that don't change and use the remaining cost and benefits to make your decision. And your decision rule is, did profit go up if we use this one, or did costs go down if we use this one? So something to remember is if you memorize what is an example of a relevant cost, it may not be relevant in another decision. So just be mindful of that. And we're not going to walk through these, but this is kind of a revisit to this decision. Should she drive or take the train to New York, and coming up which costs are relevant and which costs are not. And again, read the book, take a look at the PowerPoint slides, make sure you understand the costs. And so in this example, we say driving costs this much, train costs this much. If you were only making the decision based on cost, you would take the train. You would not drive. Okay. So that's one example. And so here's an example of, should you get a new machine or should you stay with the old machine? And so in this example, the new machine is going to be a rental and it's going to cost you $3,000 per year. But the good news is, if you have a machine, that's automation, so you will need less labor. I don't know if that's good news to the people whose jobs go away, but anyway, hopefully they can be redeployed to another product. So they're saying, hey, labor costs go down. Okay, so that's a benefit. But machine costs go up, so that's a cost. And you can see how this is presented as a positive 15 and a negative 3 for a net benefit of 12. So therefore, if you were just making this decision based on cost, you should rent the machine. Okay. Now, some people do a method where you just do just the incremental costs. Incremental labor costs go down, so that's a plus. Increase in expenses go up, so that's a minus. So this is the long way to present that data. This is the short way to present that data, okay? Sometimes you don't have enough information to do that full income statement side by side. If we stay where we are now, our current situation versus our proposed situation. And so you have to do that differential approach. I prefer the long approach. I think it gives people time to understand the data better. Okay, so that's one example. The next example, number 2, is keep or drop a segment. Okay, so the example is, hey, this product hasn't been profitable. We have this statement, and the decision rule is we should drop this unprofitable product if the company's overall profit goes up. Okay, and so here's the current situation. We're losing $100,000 a year, and then we go on and figure out whether we should make that decision or not. Okay, and a lot of it looks pretty easy, but then you get into something called allocated fixed costs. So we have to really revisit overhead, revisit how we allocate, and see if there's a benefit to the company. Next example is make or buy. Should you, and we use different language now in business. We say, should we manufacture in-house? Should we make it? Or should we outsource, buy it? Same thing. So typically, companies like to have more control of the product, but sometimes it can be cheaper to have it outsourced. So Boeing did a lot of outsourcing. And if you're following the news, they've had some trouble with some of their suppliers on quality. So they're trying to figure that out now. So here's a first look, and this is in your course pack, a first look at this product 4A, and this is what it cost. And then somebody else, another company says, oh, we'll sell it to you. We'll manufacture that for 25. Looks good on paper. And then you have to dig into the data and see if that's really, really a good decision. Okay. Next one is special order. And the question is, if you have a customer who says, I want to do a one-time buy, I'm not a repeat customer, I know you have extra capacity. How about you sell me 3,000 of those, but instead of selling them to me for $10, sell them to me for $5, and we'll both make a little money. Okay. All right. So you have to look at the incremental costs and benefits, just like we've been doing. So that's what's happening. I'm sorry, I got the dollars wrong. We normally sell for 20. The special order, they're offering 10, but we have the capacity, so why not? And so again, this gets pretty tricky as to whether that makes sense. Okay, and then here's some more examples for the class. We've done constrained resource. We talked about that before. And we came up with a production plan. And we did that in our first unit, in our first exam. So be sure you understand that one. And then the last example is something called joint products. And joint products are where you manufacture a product up to a split-off point. In this case, we come up with crude oil. And then based on what we do after that split-off point, we produce, in this example, 3 different products: oil, gas, or some sort of chemicals, okay? And the question is, this is going to cost more money, and should we do these additional products? Of course, if we process them further, we expect to make more money. And so we do the analysis of whether we should sell at the split-off point. We calculate that profit margin, and then we look at each product and say, are we going to make more money at these other points? Okay. And those are the examples. And so we're going to dig into those in more detail tomorrow. So we should have more of that then. So, all right.